The orphaned beginning Kelechi was only 7 when tragedy shattered the gentle rhythm of his childhood. His father, a hard-working carpenter known for crafting beautiful stools and doors, died suddenly after a brief but vicious illness. His mother had already passed away when he was a baby, leaving only the soft echo of lullabies he barely remembered. The neighbors whispered with pity, calling him the unfortunate child, as though his fate had been sealed from birth. With no close relatives willing to take responsibility, Kelechi found himself drifting between uncertainty and fear. His father's second wife reluctantly agreed to care for him, though her eyes betrayed her reluctance. Kelechi felt small and invisible as he watched his father's burial. Clutching his own hands for comfort, his tears flowed endlessly, soaking the faded shirt he wore, his only tangible link to better days. Suddenly, the world felt too wide, too harsh, and far too empty for a child to navigate alone. Still, he clung to the fragile hope that his father's wife might one day show him genuine affection. But each time she looked at him, he sensed a coldness lurking behind her forced, shallow smiles. The once warm home filled with laughter, sawdust, and the scent of fresh wood now echoed with silence and tension. Kelechi barely understood why life had become so bitter so quickly, yet he swallowed his pain quietly. In the depth of his young heart, he promised himself never to forget the love his parents had given him, and to someday rise above the shadows of his suffering. No matter how long or difficult the journey ahead, the arrival of the stepmother Mama Adogo had entered Kelechi's life a few years before his father's death, bringing with her a flutter of change. She came from a neighboring village, her beauty and charm turning heads wherever she went. At first, she carried herself like a caring woman, often reaching out to young Kelechi with warmth. She dressed him, prepared meals with a smile, and sometimes braided his hair while humming softly. But her kindness was a delicate mask, carefully crafted to impress outsiders and deceive his father. Behind the closed doors of their home, she treated Kelechi with unsettling indifference. She never missed a chance to remind him that he wasn't her real child, emphasizing every word. Bitterness laced her voice whenever she mentioned his late mother, as though the woman were a rival. To her, Kelechi was nothing more than a living reminder of a past she wished didn't exist. Yet, the boy greeted her each morning with respect, hoping she might one day soften toward him. He believed that good behavior could melt even the hardest of hearts. But when his father died, the illusion of her kindness crumbled like old clay in the sun. The love she once pretended to offer evaporated instantly, leaving behind only hostility. It became painfully clear to Kelechi that she saw him as a burden, not a child deserving love. He soon realized her presence marked the beginning of a long and painful chapter of his young life. A life of maltreatment after his father's death. Mama Adogo no longer bothered to hide the hatred simmering in her heart. She dragged Kelechi from sleep before sunrise, sending him to fetch water from a distant stream, while her own children slept comfortably on soft mats. He swept the compound in the cold morning air. She fed him only after everyone else had eaten, leaving behind scraps barely enough for a growing child. Some nights, when the pot was empty, he went to bed hungry, his stomach twisting in despair. She refused to buy him clothes, forcing him to wear shirts so torn they barely covered his shoulders. At school, his classmates whispered and laughed, mocking his ragged appearance. He begged her to let him attend classes regularly, but she often locked the gate and kept him home for chores. To her, he was not a child but a servant whose only purpose was work. Neighbors occasionally noticed the bruises and hardship, but fear kept them silent. She punished him harshly for the smallest mistake: spilled water, missing firewood, slow footsteps. Even when he worked tirelessly, she accused him of laziness and ingratitude. Her words were sharper than any slap, slicing through his fragile confidence. Still, Kelechi endured in silence, hoping that one morning she would show mercy. But the more he endured, the more her cruelty grew, like a fire without end. Dreams bigger than his suffering expanded. 15 lines. Despite the relentless hardship, Kelechi carried dreams that refused to die. He admired the neat students who walked past his house each morning, their clean uniforms bright with hope. He imagined himself among them, sitting in a classroom and answering questions confidently. Books fascinated him. He treated even torn, dirty pages like treasures. Whenever he found discarded papers, he smoothed them carefully and tried to read every word. He believed education was the key that could unlock the chains of his suffering. Sometimes he sneaked to the schoolyard to watch older boys solve math problems on the chalkboard. To him, the chalkboard was more than wood, and slate it was a window into the future. He often whispered to himself, "One day, I will make it. One day, I'll be free." Those words became his comfort during nights when hunger gnawed at his insides. He understood that greatness rarely grows from comfort. It grows from endurance. His quiet determination turned into a strength no one could steal from him. Every night he prayed not just for food, but for a chance, just one chance to change his life. His body grew weaker from work, but his spirit only rose higher, and slowly his dreams began to stretch farther than the walls that imprisoned him. One hot afternoon, while Kelechi struggled to carry a heavy bundle of firewood, Papa Iro watched from his doorway. The elderly man had long noticed the boy's suffering, but wrestled with how to intervene safely. He called Kelechi over, his voice gentle but firm, and asked why he always appeared so burdened. Kelechi hesitated, glancing nervously toward home, then whispered the painful truth about his mistreatment. Papa Iro's chest tightened with sorrow, remembering his years as a teacher and the many children he had mentored. Moved by compassion, he offered to teach Kelechi how to read and write, but only in secret. That evening, after finishing his chores, Kelechi tiptoed to the old man's hut, his heart racing with hope. Papa Iro welcomed him warmly and introduced him to letters, words, and simple arithmetic. The boy absorbed every lesson hungrily, his mind awakening like dry soil meeting rain. These secret sessions quickly became the highlight of Kelechi's days of hardship. They read old newspapers, practiced new words, and solved sums by lantern light. Papa Iro praised his efforts, telling him that he had the mind of a scholar. He reminded Kelechi that knowledge could build bridges where life had raised walls. With each passing day, their bond deepened, forming a silent alliance of hope. But little did they know that their secret would soon unravel. One night, Mama Doggo noticed Kelechi returning later than usual. His steps hurried and nervous. Suspicion burned inside her, and the next evening she followed him quietly through the shadows. She burst into Papa Ero's hut just as the boy was practicing his handwriting. Fury twisted her face as she shouted that the boy had no right to waste time on useless things. She hurled accusations at the old man, claiming he wanted to spoil the child she never cared for. Before Kelechi could explain, she dragged him home and beat him with a broomstick until his skin stung and bled. Then she locked him in a dark room for 2 days, denying him even a sip of water. Neighbors heard his weak cries but chose silence over confrontation, fearing her notorious temper. Papa Ero tried to intervene, but Mama Doggo threatened him fiercely, forbidding him from speaking to her slave again. The old man walked home trembling with grief, praying desperately for the child's safety. When Kelechi was finally released, he staggered out, his body frail and trembling. Yet his spirit, though battered, remained unbroken. Mama Doggo warned him never to learn anything again and vowed to monitor every step he took. She loaded him with more chores, trying to drown the spark of ambition in him. But instead of dying, the pain hardened into determination. Kelechi realized he would never know peace in that house. The brutal beating marked a turning point in Kelechi's life, a moment when fear transformed into resolve. He realized with painful clarity that staying in that house meant slow destruction. So, late at night, when the compound slept, he began to plan his escape with trembling hands. He gathered whatever he could: a worn shirt, a small bottle of water, and a few coins Papa Ero had once slipped into his palm. Fear lingered heavily around him, but the spark of hope inside him glowed brighter. He waited patiently for a night when Mama Doggo traveled to the nearby night market. When her footsteps faded into the distance, drowned by cricket songs, Kelechi took a deep breath and slipped out. His hands shook violently, but his resolve stood unshaken. He crept along silent village paths, guided only by moonlight and desperation. Every step felt like peeling away the years of suffering that had weighed him down. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew he had to leave to survive. The cool night breeze brushed against his face like a whisper of freedom. He cast one last look at the house that had become his prison. Quietly, he whispered goodbye not to the walls, but to the pain they represented. And though the unknown frightened him, he stepped into it willingly, for his destiny awaited beyond those shadows. Kelechi walked for hours before sunrise, his small legs trembling with exhaustion and fear. The dusty, winding road stretched before him like an endless test of his courage. In each village he passed, strangers stared at his torn clothes and weary eyes. Some kind souls offered a cup of water or a fruit. Others turned away in indifference. Still, he kept moving, because looking back was simply not an option. Morning birds chirped loudly overhead as the sky slowly brightened with promise. His stomach growled painfully, yet he pushed forward with stubborn determination. He hoped to reach the nearest city rumored to be a place where dreams could begin. But the road carried dangers: wild animals rustling from the bushes, sudden storms, and unfriendly faces. Kelechi prayed softly with each step, trusting fate to shield him from harm. He slept beneath trees on nights when exhaustion overtook him and bathed in cool streams when he could. The journey tested every fiber of his endurance, far beyond the suffering he had known at home. Yet every sunrise felt like a small victory, a reminder that he was still moving forward. Deep inside, he held tightly to the belief that life would someday reward his bravery, and with courage as his only companion, he ventured deeper into the great unknown. When Kelechi finally reached the bustling city, its overwhelming noise and towering buildings stunned him. Cars honked endlessly, crowds rushed in every direction, and he felt painfully small in the midst of it all. He searched desperately for a place to rest, but had no money for even the cheapest roadside lodge. That night, he curled up beneath a wooden stall in a crowded market, clutching himself for warmth. The cold, unforgiving ground bruised his thin body, but freedom softened the discomfort. He woke up to traders shouting prices, hawkers calling customers, and the clatter of daily business. Days slipped by as he did odd jobs washing plates, sweeping stalls, carrying loads just to earn food. On hungrier days, he begged quietly, shame burning in his chest, but necessity pushing him forward. He soon learned that the city, though full of promise, could be as harsh and lonely as his old life. Yet he refused to cry, believing that his suffering was only a temporary shadow. At night, he gazed at the glowing city lights, imagining a day he would rise above the streets. He whispered promises to himself that he would never again sleep on bare pavement. Though homeless, he felt a flicker of hope growing stronger in his heart. He watched how traders bargained, strategized, and hustled for survival. Those silent observations planted the seeds of the businessman he was destined to become. One scorching afternoon, while resting beneath a shady tree, Kelechi spotted a man collapsing nearby. People hurried past without sparing a glance, swallowed by the chaos of their daily routines. Without hesitation, Kelechi rushed to the man, kneeling beside him with genuine concern. He bought a small sachet of water from a vendor and gently sprinkled it on the stranger's face. Slowly, the man's eyes fluttered open, filled with confusion and exhaustion. He thanked Kelechi weakly, amazed that a stranger, especially a child, had stopped to help. The man introduced himself as Mr. Bocco, a business owner with a bustling shop in the city. Curious, he asked why such a young boy was wandering the streets alone. With honesty and vulnerability, Kelechi shared his painful journey from home to the city. Mr. Bocco listened carefully, his heart softening with compassion and admiration. He saw bravery and humility shining through the boy's hardship. Moved, he invited Kelechi to his shop, promising him food and a safe place to rest. Kelechi blinked in disbelief, unsure if it was a dream or reality. But gratitude filled his chest as he followed the man, hopeful yet cautious. That act of kindness became the moment his destiny shifted toward a brighter path. At Mr. Bocco's shop, Kelechi felt warmth and kindness he hadn't experienced in months, maybe even years. He received a warm meal, a clean shirt, and a soft mat at the back of the store, where he could finally sleep in peace. Early the next morning, Mr. Bocco gently offered him a small job as an errand boy. Kelechi accepted eagerly, determined to repay the kindness he had received. He swept the shop, organized goods, and carefully delivered packages across the busy market. Not once did he complain, even when the task stretched his strength to its limits. Customers soon noticed his politeness, obedience, and dedication. Some praised him openly, saying the boy had good manners and a bright spirit. Mr. Bocco observed all this and realized Kelechi carried rare qualities: discipline, honesty, and endurance. He began teaching the boy simple business skills, counting money, recording sales, and communicating with customers. Kelechi absorbed every lesson like water to a thirsty plant. His work ethic impressed the entire staff, earning him respect beyond his years. Slowly, trust blossomed between him and his employer. For the first time in a long while, Kelechi felt hope carrying him instead of fear. He believed that this small job was more than survival. It was the first step of his transformation. Working in the shop became Kelechi's unofficial school, a place where every task taught a new lesson. He learned to attend to customers with confidence, greeting each one with a warm and respectful smile. Soon, he memorized the prices of goods without needing to check the shelves. He watched closely as daily profits and losses were recorded in the ledger, absorbing every detail. He stood quietly beside Mr. Bocco during supplier negotiations, studying how each deal was made. He observed how successful people walked, talked, and even handled disagreements gracefully. Every moment became a classroom, and his young mind absorbed knowledge like dry soil drinking water. Even after long days, he stayed late to sweep, mop, and arrange goods neatly in order. Whenever he didn't understand something, he politely asked questions, eager to grow. Mr. Bocco noticed his dedication and often told him he was destined for greatness. Kelechi began reading old business books stacked in a dusty corner of the shop. Through practice and repetition, his reading improved and his math skills sharpened. He learned that discipline more than talent was the true foundation of success. Each day felt like a stepping stone toward a future brighter than his painful past. Slowly, he realized that his past no longer defined him, his ambition did. Although his salary was small, Kelechi saved diligently, treating every coin as a brick for his future. He refused to spend on unnecessary luxuries, reminding himself of nights he slept hungry. Each week, he carefully set aside a tiny portion into a wooden savings box he hid under his mat. His past suffering pushed him to rise above poverty, no matter how long it took. At night, he counted his savings with pride, smiling at how the small amounts slowly grew. He learned the principles of money management by watching others and reading old books. He realized true success wasn't just about earning, it was about saving and planning ahead. Over time, the coins multiplied, giving him a newfound sense of hope. He used part of his savings to buy small phone chargers and earphones to sell during weekends. Carrying them on a tray, he walked through busy streets calling out politely to customers. People loved his humility, honest prices, and calm demeanor. Soon, his weekend sales earned more money than his weekly salary at the shop. His confidence soared as he watched his savings and business skills grow side by side. He felt independence blossom inside him, no longer the helpless boy he once was. This marked the first real step toward the success he had always dreamed of. Kelechi noticed a rising need around him. People were constantly searching for affordable phone accessories. He realized the demand was high, but few sellers offered reliable products at fair prices. A spark lit inside him, giving birth to a bold idea that would change everything. He gathered all his savings and invested them in bulk purchases to maximize profit. He searched tirelessly until he found a wholesaler whose prices suited his growing ambition. Using his earnings and creativity, he built a small wooden kiosk on a busy corner near the market. Within days, customers flocked to him, attracted by his honesty, smile, and attentive service. He issued receipts, counted money accurately, and treated everyone with remarkable respect. Word spread quickly across the neighborhood that a trustworthy young seller had arrived. His customer base grew faster than he expected, surprising even seasoned traders. Every day, he refined his business, arranging goods better, tracking stock, and improving communication. Instead of spending profits, he reinvested them wisely to expand his supplies. Soon, he bought materials for a second kiosk and hired another street boy who needed help. Kelechi's small idea had blossomed into a growing enterprise with real potential. And deep down, he knew his journey toward greatness had only just begun. As months passed, Kelechi's business grew steadily, reflecting the discipline he poured into it. He woke before dawn each day, racing the sunrise to restock his kiosks before the market stirred. His days were long and busy, split between managing his kiosks and helping at Mr. Bako's shop. People in the market admired how focused and responsible he had become at such a young age. Challenges came often: robbery attempts, sudden price hikes, unpredictable weather, and fierce competition. But he faced each obstacle with courage, refusing to be intimidated or discouraged. He viewed every setback as a lesson, a step toward greater success, rather than a failure. To stay ahead, he introduced new items like power banks, phone cases, and memory cards. Over time, customers trusted him more than older, more established traders. His profits tripled within a year, shocking those who had once overlooked him. With his savings, he opened a small store near the main road where traffic was heavier. He hired two more assistance boys who had once slept on the streets just like he had. He wanted to extend the same kindness he had once received. His reputation spread quickly among suppliers, who began to respect his growing influence. Kelechi was no longer just a survivor, he was becoming a recognized entrepreneur. One afternoon, a major electronics supplier visited the market to scout for new partners. He noticed the constant crowd gathered around Kelechi's stall and grew curious. Intrigued, he approached and began asking questions about the young entrepreneur behind the counter. Kelechi explained his products, pricing, and business strategy with confidence and clarity. The supplier was impressed by his honesty, professionalism, and maturity far beyond his years. He offered Kelechi the rare opportunity to purchase goods on credit, something usually given only to big traders. This meant Kelechi could expand his inventory without waiting months to gather capital. For a young street boy turned businessman, it was a life-changing offer. Kelechi accepted with gratitude, promising to honor the trust placed in him. With the new stock, he filled his store with high-quality products customers had long desired. People flocked to his shop, excited by the increased variety and reliability. Daily sales soared to levels he had never imagined possible. He paid the supplier back promptly, strengthening their partnership and building credibility. This reliable relationship became the engine driving his rapid expansion. Kelechi's rise to wealth had officially begun. With profits rising and demand growing, Kelechi knew it was time to take a bold step. He searched the city until he found a prime location in a busy commercial area. Though the rent was high, he believed in his dream and trusted his instincts. Months of disciplined saving finally allowed him to secure the space. He installed shelves, display counters, bright lights, and security features to make the shop stand out. He proudly named it Kelechi Mobile Hub, a reminder of the journey from street boy to businessman. On opening day, the crowd was so large that passers became just to see the excitement. People marveled at how far the once homeless boy had come. Inspired by his resilience, his shop offered phones, accessories, chargers, and even professional repairs. He hired skilled technicians to handle complex repairs while he managed sales and customers. His customer service remained unmatched, friendly, honest, and reliable. Within months, the shop became one of the most trusted and visited in the entire district. The profits were so good that he soon opened a second branch across town. For the first time in his life, Kelechi felt he was living the dream he once whispered under the city lights. And his success story was now spreading across the city, inspiring many who knew where he started. Within just a few years, Kelechi's empire grew beyond anything he had once dreamed. He owned multiple stores across the region, each thriving under his careful management. People marveled at how one of the youngest businessmen in the city had risen so quickly. Journalists came from far and near to interview him about his remarkable journey from street boy to success. He traveled frequently to other states, building partnerships and expanding his business connections. Soon, he diversified his income investing in real estate, transportation, and wholesale electronics supply. His wealth multiplied far beyond the humble visions of his early years. He purchased a beautiful home, elegantly furnished and filled with warmth. Those who once ignored or mocked him now spoke of him with admiration and respect. Despite the fame, he remained humble, always greeting people with kindness. He employed many youths, particularly orphans and former street children like himself. He vowed that no child in his reach would suffer the way he once did. Though wealth blessed him with comfort, generosity became his greatest joy. Still, he continued working tirelessly, knowing that consistency sustained success. Across many communities, his story spread like wildfire, proof of hard work, resilience, and grace. After many years of growth and healing, Kelechi felt it was time to return to his village. He longed to see Papa Iro and the familiar paths that shaped his earliest memories. When he drove into the village, people gasped and whispered in disbelief. The boy who once wore rags now stepped out of a shining car, dressed in elegance and confidence. Mama Doggo stood frozen, unable to reconcile the man before her with the child she mistreated. Her children stared, whispering stories they had once only heard from neighbors. Villagers gathered around him joyfully, proud of what he had achieved. Kelechi greeted everyone with humility, never forgetting his roots. He hurried to Papa Iro's hut, where the old man struggled to stand upon seeing him. Their embrace was filled with tears, one of gratitude, the other of pride. Papa Iro wept openly, overwhelmed by the transformation of the boy he once taught in secret. Kelechi thanked him repeatedly for planting the seed that sprouted into a forest of success. He donated food, clothing, and funds to help the villagers who once showed him kindness. He even approached Mama Doggo gently, not with anger, but with peace. His homecoming marked the closing of old wounds and the beginning of healing. In the quiet moments after his return home, Kelechi realized forgiveness was the strongest form of victory. He approached Mama Doggo softly, assuring her he carried no bitterness in his heart. She collapsed into tears, broken by the weight of her past cruelty. Instead of turning away, Kelechi comforted her and offered support for her children's future. With empathy guiding him, he built a foundation dedicated to helping orphans and street children. The foundation provided education, shelter, mentorship, and vocational training. Hundreds of youths found hope again through his generosity. Soon, he became a symbol of inspiration, proof that hardship could refine, not destroy. His business empire continued to expand, but he remained grounded in compassion. He used part of his wealth to build a modern school in his village. To honor the love of the parents he barely knew, he named the school after them. Kelechi's journey became a living testimony that pain could transform into lifelong purpose. His story traveled across cities and borders, inspiring countless hearts. He lived each day with gratitude and humility, touching lives through kindness. The poor orphan boy had become a legend, leaving behind a legacy that would echo for generations.